G'day legends, Watery48 here. Star Wars nowadays is like most other big franchises of old. When you hear of a new project, most people get the same feeling. That being the hope of a positive outcome, with the realistic acknowledgement that there is a high likelihood of difficulties and setbacks. In other words, cautious optimism. That being said, The Force Unleashed was made during a much simpler time. Some would even say the good old days of Star Wars. So if you're a fan of the franchise, let this be a trip down memory lane to better times. As always, let's start with the story. When we first start the game, we are met with the iconic Star Wars opening text crawl, which explains that the Galactic Empire is actively seeking out the remnants of the Jedi Order, and that there is an assault on the Wookiee homeworld of Kashyyyk that Darth Vader is being sent to assist in killing one of these Jedi. We are then shown the galaxy's biggest aura farmer himself, Lord Vader, who chokes out the beta male cuck officer who tries yapping to the alpha aura farmer about how low his testosterone levels are or something. But our boy Vader just has no time for that. We then get to play as the Dark Lord himself and aura farm our way to the Rogue Jedi, where after beating him we realise that he has a son, who is so strong in the Force that when Vader senses him he thinks it's the Jedi's master. The Rogue Jedi's son snatches Vader's saber out of his hands using the Force, leaving Vader surprised and his aura reserves slightly drained from being disarmed by a child. As the boy is holding Vader's saber, the officer from earlier enters the room with some stormtroopers and orders them to kill the boy. Vader then snatches his saber back and protects the boy by killing the troopers and officer. We then fast forward a few years and see that the boy from earlier is now all grown up and is being trained in secret as Vader's apprentice. This is also where we are formally introduced to our main character, Starkiller, technically the third best aura farmer in the galaxy, only beaten out by Vader himself and Ben Podinaros, the best pod racer this side of the Moisture Farms. Vader also reveals to us that his ultimate plan is to kill Emperor Palpatine and take over the Empire with Starkiller by his side. However, Vader does not yet think Starkiller is powerful enough to face the Emperor, so he sends him to go kill a Jedi known as General Coda. It is also explained to us that Coda survived Order 66 because he had distrust of the clone army and decided to form his own militia to complete missions for the Republic. Since Order 66, Coda and his men have been fighting the Empire. Starkiller is also told to kill everyone including stormtroopers, as his very existence must be kept secret from the Emperor for Vader's plan to work. Around this time we meet Starkiller's training droid Proxy and pilot/love interest Juno. After fighting through both Coda's militia and stormtroopers, we get to finally fight Coda himself. After the fight, Coda uses the Force to look into Starkiller's future and tells us that eventually he will become Starkiller's master and not Vader. Then we kill him. Starkiller then reports back to Vader and gets sent on another mission to kill a Jedi. I'm going to fast forward a bit here because the next couple of missions don't really move the story forward in any way. You essentially go out, kill a Jedi, and report to Vader for a couple of missions. That is until after one of these missions, you and Vader get a surprise visit from the Emperor, where Vader betrays you and Palpatine essentially forgives Vader for being a dickhead. You then wake up in an operation room with Vader looking over you. Starkiller rightly gets angry at Vader, but Vader then goes on to explain that he only betrayed us because he knew that him and Starkiller were not powerful enough to fight Palpatine head on. Vader then gives Starkiller the mission to go out and form his own rebellion so that they can lead Palpatine into an ambush while simultaneously squashing a large number of rebels. Starkiller then puts two and two together with what Coda had said to him earlier in the game and goes off to try and find him. You find Coda with negative aura in a bar where he tells you that he's severed connection to the Force and he can no longer be your master. Despite this, he comes with you anyway. Fast forward a bit and Juno knows we're still working for Vader but chooses to stay silent for now. Around this time we also get Senator Bail Organa on the team by saving his daughter Leia from the Empire. And yes, it is the Leia you're thinking of. You also quickly realise that Starkiller's feelings for Juno and his new allies are growing very strong. Vader then rocks up and betrays us again, revealing we were merely a tool to weed out the Empire's enemies.
You agreed to stay away!
I lied, as I have from the very beginning.
We get away from Vader due to Proxy sacrificing himself for us, and Vader captures Coda, Bail, and Leia. You and Juno then go and try to save them, leading us to the last level of the game where you fight and greatly injure Vader. Palpatine tries to convert you to the dark side and kill Vader. Coda then runs at Palpatine to stop him but gets subdued by Palpatine's Force lightning. We then get to choose between saving our friends or killing Vader. If you choose the light side ending and save your friends, you try to kill Palpatine, but Coda stops you, turning you towards the light side. Palpatine then attacks Coda with his Force Lightning again, but Starkiller jumps in the way to protect Coda. An injured Vader and squad of stormtroopers come in to try and finish off the captives. Starkiller then uses his Force Repulse ability, but due to Palpatine's lightning combining with it, this causes an explosion that kills him and the stormtroopers whilst leaving Vader and Palpatine alive. In the dark side ending, you finish off Vader, then Palpatine tells you to kill Coda, which you don't do and try to kill him instead. Palpatine then hits you with his Force Lightning and kills Juno by crashing her ship into you. You then wake up on an operating table with a bunch of cybernetics placed in you to keep you alive, and you become Palpatine's new apprentice. Overall, the story is great, and both the dark and light side ending fit well with the plot for the rest of the game. Too often I will see games with multiple endings and one of those endings just doesn't match up with the rest of the game, but that doesn't happen here at all. Now before I talk about the gameplay, I want to go over the DLC stories really quick, as they are quite short and not that complicated. The first DLC is the Jedi Temple DLC. The story follows after the light side ending of the base game, and is basically Starkiller going to the Jedi Temple to find a holocron about his biological father. This DLC is definitely the weakest out of the three, but it's more Force Unleashed, so I can't really complain too much. Oh, and Proxy's death gets retconned here for some reason. The other two DLCs are the Hoth and Tatooine DLC. These DLCs take place after the game's dark side ending, where Starkiller is now Palpatine's apprentice. You essentially take Vader's role from the original trilogy of movies, where you're hunting down and killing the main characters. This storyline ends with you fighting Luke and turning him to the dark side and making him your secret apprentice, much like Vader did with Starkiller at the beginning of the game. These two DLCs are far superior in my opinion, but anyway, that's finally it for all the story in this game. Let's move on to the gameplay. Now, as mentioned in my story synopsis, Starkiller for most of the game is a Sith, and fucking hell, he is a powerhouse. They really do a good job in this game at making you feel like a Sith. Starkiller being so strong is one of the main reasons he was decanonized from the Star Wars story, and whilst personally I find that disappointing, I wouldn't be lying if I didn't think that's more of a flex than a disappointment. I mean, for Christ's sake, this man pulls a Star Destroyer out of orbit using the Force. It's no wonder they thought he was too powerful. Most of the combat revolves around you using button combos similar to fighting games that allow you to pull off special moves. In fact, by just looking at this gameplay, you're probably seeing a lot of similarities to the original God of War games. And that's essentially what the Force Unleashed is. It's those old God of War games, but with the Star Wars skin over it. Quick time events and all. Now, some of you watching may hear that sentence and interpret it as a bad thing, but it really is quite the contrary. What I'm saying here is that they took the fun gameplay of God of War and turned it into a Star Wars game in a way that didn't make it feel like a cheap knockoff. With that being said though, the game does have some minor flaws in the gameplay, most of which aren't necessarily the game's fault. This game released all the way back in 2008, so there is some stuff in this game that's more due to the game not aging well with modern standards. Then there's also some stuff which I'm assuming is just bad code. Let's start off with the actual fighting itself. At times, it can feel really clunky. Now, like I said, it's an old game, and from what I've heard, the way the game handled at the time was completely acceptable. It just unfortunately hasn't aged well. It's not to the point where it's unplayable, and it's kind of hard to explain without just giving you the controller and letting you play for yourself. This issue also carries over to the controls of picking up objects and throwing them. Choosing what to pick up and moving it around is easy enough, although slightly clunky at times, but the main issues stem from throwing items. At multiple points in the game, it will be required for you to pick up and throw objects, but it is very random at what the game will choose to target when throwing. For example, during the part of the game where you pull down the Star Destroyer, there are multiple TIE fighters shooting you, and the game expects you to grab this electrical turd and hurl it at the TIE fighters. The issue with this is sometimes the game will decide to throw the turd nugget at this random butt plug thing which doesn't even pose a threat to you, making what should be a really cool set piece be slightly annoying to play through. Another issue I have specifically with this part of the game is the on-screen commands for pulling down the destroyer. At times I will be doing exactly what it tells me to do and nothing will happen. This leads right into the potential bad code I was talking about earlier. It's specifically with the QuickTime events. Sometimes during QTEs my inputs just wouldn't go through. Thankfully the game is pretty forgiving during these events and you can't really fail them. But still, instead of just pressing a button once, I had to mash it just to make sure the game picked up that I did in fact press the button on time. These issues are very minor though, and in my opinion, don't really take away from how awesome the gameplay is. There is one last complaint I have. This is not the best PC port. If you go into the options menu, all you can change is the volume and brightness. Luckily there's nothing wrong with the game by default, like there's no horrible motion blur you can't turn off or anything like that. But even all the way back in 2008, PC ports and games had standards, and in this regard I don't think The Force Unleashed reached those standards. Even though I have complained about some flaws in this game quite a bit, it is still 100% worth a playthrough, and I could even argue is one of the best Star Wars games of all time. But before I end this video, I'm unfortunately going to leave this with a sad note, not about this game, but about its sequel, The Force Unleashed 2. You see, when I went to make this video, I was going to do an analysis similar to my Mirror's Edge video I made a couple of weeks ago. However, upon trying to play The Force Unleashed 2, I made a shocking and sad discovery. For me at least, this game is unplayable on PC. Trust me guys, I tried everything to try and get this to work. I risked getting malware by installing a fan-made patch off a sketchy site and changing stuff in the game's files, but from what I read, those fixes only work if you're on Windows 7 or 10 and I'm on Windows 11. Another fix I saw was changing your resolution in the Windows settings menu to the game's default resolution, but that didn't work either. The last fix I found, which I haven't done, is to literally remove the game's cutscenes entirely, because I'm pretty sure that's what was crashing me, the very first cutscene of the game. But I figured if I had to do that to play it, then what's the point, man? And I gave up and refunded it. Maybe sometime in the future I'll rebuy it on console, but I was just so disheartened by my PC experience, it's not going to be for a while. Anyway, those were my thoughts on The Force Unleashed. I have a Twitch now, so go subscribe to that if you want to catch me live. But that's it for now. Bye.